hell are you doing?
No.
I don't want to die. Why are they doing this?
Hello, welcome to Outside Xbox and the first gameplay footage from tactical military shooter Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Not to be confused with Ghost Recon Point Break, which would be an extreme sports heist game starring Keanu Reeves. Regardless, we've still got our fingers crossed for a surfing minigame. Here are 7 things you need to know about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is arriving on October 4th of this very year.
Ghost Lead, this is Ghost 1-2. We're en route to your location.
Okay.
Breakpoint is technically a direct sequel to Ghost Recon Wildlands, which boasted a huge open world but story-wise was about as deep as an episode of WWE SmackDown. This new game aims to fix all that with a new focus on narrative and higher quality cutscenes. I mean, don't expect the Great American Novel, there's still going to be a lot of shooting and a lot of shouting.
What's that?
Wildlands' lead character Nomad returns, only in a dramatic piece of character development. This time he's wearing his baseball cap backwards. Otherwise he's the same gruff, bearded Special Forces operative that you'll remember from this special edition statue of him squatting on a rock. Breakpoint kicks off with you crash landing on the remote island headquarters of a technology company called Channell. The company specialises in lethal military drones, but they've been hacked by a shadowy private military company called Sentinel Corps who has taken complete control of the island. Alright, fess up. Who left their password as password? Breakpoint also features Mass Effect style conversation options, and your choices might affect how you approach your escape from an area at the end of a mission, for example. Maybe there'll be romanceable squad mates. There won't be romanceable squad mates. Because you're stuck on the islands of Aroa, surrounded by hostile forces, Breakpoint is going to be far more about survival than Wildlands was. Hopefully that doesn't translate into having to eat raw sheep flesh every 15 minutes just to stay alive. I'm looking at you, Metal Gear Survive. What we do know is that you won't be sprinting around the place indefinitely like Captain America doing laps.
Ghost 1-1, this is Ghost Lead. I'm 2 mics out your location, but I got something bad's on my ass.
A new stamina system will need to be managed to ensure you aren't wheezing like an asthmatic pensioner by the time you get to the combat zone. A new injury system will affect that stamina too, and injuries sustained in the field will need to be dealt with. Until you patch yourself up, you'll likely be limping around and your mobility will be severely compromised. And it's sort of heartening to know that one of the ways your elite, highly trained Special Forces operative can sustain those injuries is by tumbling down a hill like a clumsy idiot. Hey, at least if this Special Forces thing doesn't work out, you can always get some money from one of those funniest home videos shows. Those are still a thing, right?
Get set, guys! Good cover.
In spite of the increased focus on storyline and the new survival elements, Wildlands fans will be pleased to hear that Breakpoint is once again a co-op game. You'll be able to squad up with 3 buddies for the entirety of the campaign and argue about those dialogue choices to your heart's content. What you won't be arguing about is who has to spend all the really exciting moments hiding in bushes a mile away as a sniper, because classes can be reassigned every time you head back to the bivouac. You know, once you've figured out what a bivouac is. What's more, individual weapons can be fine-tuned at the bivouac for different missions, so if you know you're going into a fight that will feature lots of ranged combat, for example, you can choose to buff your weapon's accuracy for the mission ahead. And if the poop still hits the fan in your co-op mission, at least you'll be able to carry your mates to safety now. Or in our case, at least your mates will be able to carry you to safety now.
I got you.
Even if you've got no mates at all, you'll be able to enjoy everything the game has to offer. For example, you can still perform those series trademark synchronized shots with up to 3 pocket-sized drones. Hey, if you give them all names, maybe they'll feel like friends. This one's Zach, he's the joker of the team.
Drones out.
Classic Zach. If, like us, you spent all of your geography lessons drawing detailed diagrams of human anatomy in the textbook, you'll have been surprised to discover that Bolivia from Ghost Recon Wildlands was an actual place. I know! For Breakpoint though, the location is an entirely fictional Pacific island archipelago called Aroa. What this means is that the game can mix up the terrain far more than Wildlands ever did. So there'll be the sort of sunny beaches that would be the perfect place for a pina colada if it wasn't for all the hovering murder drones, but also frozen mountain peaks which will turn your beard into one big hairy icicle. And while the emphasis is more on natural terrain, when we visited Ubisoft's Paris studio we did get a brief glimpse of a capital city that hinted at the sort of more urban combat that we haven't seen in a Ghost Recon game for years. Of course we don't have any footage of it, so here's some more forest. Just imagine a skyscraper in there. At the very least, this remains the headquarters of a huge technology corporation, so you'll find all the buildings on the island look like the sort of place where Elon Musk plugs himself into charge for 2 hours every night. Oh, and there's an active volcano in there somewhere too, because why the hell not?
We are ghosts. We aren't afraid of death.
Breakpoint is going to dish up far more enemy variety than Wildlands did. The new technological plotline allows for all sorts of weird and wonderful enemies, including automated tanks and bothersome hovering drones. We're going to need a bigger can of Raid. That increased variety applies to human enemies too, like this Gatling gun guy who looks like he's ready to go and train some police dogs. In charge of the hostile forces on Aroa are the Wolves, a bunch of Special Ops baddies working for Sentinel Corps and led by a former ghost called Cole D. Walker. Walker is played by Jon Bernthal, who you might remember as Shane from The Walking Dead, Frank Castle from Marvel's The Punisher, or Young Man in 2010 comedy movie Date Night. The idea is that you're being chased by someone with the exact same training and capabilities as you have, and very much placing you as the hunted rather than the hunter as you were in Wildlands. Still, it's not like you'll be completely helpless. You can now cover yourself in mud in order to hide from patrolling enemies. Hey, if it worked on the Predator in the movie Predator, it'll work on these guys.
Nothing to report. I'm gonna continue my search.
Over here, I see him! Hit the target!
Breakpoint isn't designed to be a constantly online game like Destiny or The Division, but it has been copying at least some of those games' homework. In addition to the central plot, Ubisoft promises that there will be additional story events added to the open world post-release, and given that Ghost Recon Wildlands has been supported with 2 years worth of DLC, we're inclined to believe them. If only we'd had hiding in mud in Wildlands, that DLC would have been a lot shorter. With Breakpoint, Ubisoft will also be adding what they're describing as endgame content, in the shape of challenging co-op raids on new, entirely separate maps. We don't have images of them here yet, but we saw bubbling sulphur fields, a sort of futuristic cubist tower, and a giant jungle antenna cradle like the one from the end of GoldenEye. We are expecting the graphics to look slightly better. These raids are designed to be extremely tough and crucially replayable, to keep you busy long after you've kicked Jon Bernthal into that active volcano. And if that isn't how the story ends, I will be requesting a full refund. Unlike Wildlands, in Breakpoint, player versus player multiplayer will be present from the game's launch. Ghost War in Wildlands featured various modes, including a straight deathmatch mode and objective-based matches, so expect more of that sort of thing when Breakpoint arrives on October 4th. Your character will be persistent across story and PvP modes as well, meaning regardless of which portion of the game you're playing, you'll be unlocking skills, weapons and customization options.
Take cover. There's an Azrael drone overhead. Copy that. Got it.
Also, it's worth mentioning that, although nothing has been confirmed or even hinted at by Ubisoft, the fact that Breakpoint features a self-contained island location with a diverse selection of different terrains means that Aroa would be the perfect location for a battle of the Royale variety. Just saying. So there you have it, yet another Ghost Recon game without a single actual ghost in it. It's like Ubisoft aren't even reading my letters. Are you still interested in Ghost Recon Breakpoint though? Let us know in the comments and like and subscribe for more videos on upcoming games here on Outside Xbox. See you next time.
3, 2,